Welcome everybody. This is Deepa Sriram. I am your host for this webinar, the first term experience of an undergraduate student living and learning in a technological world. Our presenters are Tanaz Artiega, who is our first term coordinator, as well as math faculty in the College of Undergraduate Studies, and Laurel Walsh, who's our general ed coordinator for the College of Undergraduate Studies. Welcome to this webinar. As I've mentioned, I will be the host for this. I'm just going to be in the background helping Laurel and Tanaz out if they need anything. But before I turn it over to them, there are a few housekeeping things that I'd like to go over with you so that you are able to participate as needed and as necessary and as you would like during the webinar. If you look at the center of your screen, you will see that there is a highlighted box. That box basically is the PowerPoint slideshow that Tanaz and Laurel will be using this evening. In addition, I wanted you to know that this webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link from the Center for Faculty Excellence via email, along with a copy of the PowerPoint slideshow. Basically by tomorrow, you should see that. This webinar will also be archived so that if you should need it at a later point, you can find it through the CFE website link. The second item now you'll see highlighted are three individual boxes. On the far left top, the box is the captioning box. And we have Jane who's here, and she is our closed captionist for this evening. Underneath that is the chat box. I have already posted 2 messages there that deal with providing your feedback on a survey. We would appreciate it if you would fill out the feedback survey at the end of the session. However, if you need to leave prior to the webinar ending, there is a link provided there, and we ask that you please provide us with any comments and feedback that you can about this webinar. Last but not least is the third box highlighted on the right-hand side. And in there you will notice that you will see the other participants, the host, as well as our presenters' names. If you have any comments that you need to share or would like to share during the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box on the left. Additionally, there is another option, which will now get highlighted, and it's at the top, and it's the hands raised button. If you click on this on your own screen, there is a drop-down arrow, and you will see at the first option that you have there is a raise hand. If you click on the raise hand, it will let me know that you have a question. At that point, I will click on your name and enable your microphone if necessary so that you can provide us with your feedback there. Again, the chat box is always open. However, if you would like to talk, that option is there for you as well. If you click on the same drop-down arrow again, it will disappear and your hand will go down. If you need any kind of technical support during this webinar, on the far right-hand top of your screen, you will see the help box. Please click on that and you should receive technical assistance through there. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to both Laurel and Tanaz, and once again, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you so much, Deepa, for getting us started. And I just want to encourage everybody to go ahead and use the chat box if you want to make comments during the presentation. Laurel and I will be looking there as one of us is talking, one will be looking in the chat area. So feel free to put some comments there as we go, and we'll try to incorporate, if you have any questions, the answers to them during our presentation. So I'd like to just go ahead and get us started with some opening thoughts and just establishing what this presentation is about and what we hope to accomplish and talk about today. One of the things that we focus a lot on is how to get students to graduation. And we go to faculty meetings nationally that are at the same time as graduation. And so we think a lot about accomplishing that. Well, in order to accomplish that, and for our students to get through all their other classes along the way, and to become agents of social change, the very first step that they need to accomplish on that educational journey is their very first course. And we know that the first course is really important to so many factors. For example, whether students decide to stay at Walden University to go on to their other courses depends a lot on their experience in that first course. And because there's other things, student satisfaction, retention, setting them up for success down the road, all of these come into play for the first course. We really started in the College of Undergraduate Studies kind of embarking on our own journey to reimagine what the first term experience might be like. We're going to tell you a little bit about the history so that you can understand the changes. But we're really going to focus on the course itself. We'll talk a little bit about faculty and some of the work we've done with them to help prepare them, because we know that students really put a lot of emphasis on their faculty and the support they receive from them. And of course, the students are really important, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. But really, the presentation is intended to tell you about the course itself. And so, what do students actually do during their first 6 weeks in this undergraduate first term course? Now, there are some things that you can take away from this in terms of scaffolding when you teach other courses, but it's also going to talk about what isn't covered. So, what we don't discuss is what we don't do is sometimes just as important as what we do. So keep that in mind. And what's been really exciting as we launched this first new course, a lot of energy and a lot of excitement and great results are emerging. And so we hope to share this course and kind of our experience and what's covered with you today. And hopefully you can take away some ideas, and maybe we'll pass on a little bit of contagious energy as well. So we want to start by showing you a video that we show students at the very beginning of the course. To do this, I'm going to go ahead and navigate away from this for a second. And I'm going to play this video.
Build a global network.
Find my direction.
Start my future. Start my own company.
Reinvent myself. Make my parents proud.
Become qualified for that job I want.
Expand my horizons. Becoming a student.
Job security.
Learn from experts.
Increase my income.
Become an inspiration to my community.
My children.
My family.
Friends. The world.
I'm going to navigate back to the presentation now. And so this video is one we play for students in the first week, and we say to them, with one click, you become a Walden student. A little bit more involved with that, I'm sure enrollment advisors would tell us that. But, now what? Now what? Students have now clicked and entered our classroom, and now they're inside of a online classroom, they're having assignments. Do you remember your first 6 weeks of college? So much goes on when you first start college. You've got to get your financial aid in order. You've got to get any transcripts sent in, all the forms and all the different things you have to do. Just even finding where to go for what. I went to an on-ground college, and just moving into the dorms, trying to find the location of my first classes. You know, it's similar online. They have to find how to get to the classroom. They've got to navigate the classroom to find out what the actual assignment is, to get the syllabus. And so, we like to ask everybody when they think about their first term, to remember what your own experience was like. What were your first 6 weeks of college? Now imagine that you were an online student at Walden University. What are the first 6 weeks like for them? Now, our students come from a very diverse background. There are students who have lots of transfer credits and are maybe already have an AA degree and are ready to go. There are students who, share with us that high school was something that they barely got through, and now they want to pursue college. So we've got this diversity within our classroom that we have to work towards supporting with our students. And I always like to point out my favorite example of our students that was from one of my own classes, down at the bottom where it says help. Literally, a student in the contact the instructor form just wrote help. Didn't know how to phrase that question to me of what they didn't know. Didn't even really know where to begin. Was just generally so overwhelmed that they didn't even know how to put into words what they needed help with. We've got students like that. And then we've got students on the other end of the spectrum where they say, hey, listen, I love learning. I'm ready for the challenge. Let's get going. And sometimes we have students who think that this course is kind of below them. But we really wanted to redesign the course to kind of have a little bit for everybody. And Laurel's going to tell you more about the course itself to kind of show you how we've tried to account for the diversity of our students coming in as undergraduates.
So we thought we'd start with a quick poll, and you can do this by showing your hands in the hand raising option. Have you taught undergrads at Walden? And an auxiliary, see if anybody, have you taught undergrads at Walden? I happen to know, looking at our invitee list, that there's at least one yes. Yes, we have some respondents. It looks like they have taught an undergrad course at Walden. And the other question is, have you taught a first term or orientation course? Meaning, have you worked with brand new students? And maybe we don't have anybody who's taught a first term or orientation course. But I'm sure everybody's going to be able to weigh in on the third question, which is, what do first termers, our brand new students, what do they need to know? And you can use the chat function here, or we've used a whiteboard before, but if you just want to go into the chat, everyone can see your responses in that area. What do brand new Walden students need to know? And I will tell you that when we asked this question from the program directors for undergraduate courses, it was only I think it was only 50 suggestions or 5 very dense PowerPoint slides full of things that they thought. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what do you think those first-term students, they have to know to succeed here at Walden? One of the other challenges, as you're typing, I can see people are responding, is we prepare students who come in with a multitude of professional competencies and skills, but they also come in with a real variety, a great variation in readiness for online learning and for college. We have students who've never taken an online course in their life. We have brand new students who have spent 20 years outside of college classrooms. One of Rebecca Curtis wrote, I've taught a course in undergraduate. Brand new students need to know how to use Word well enough to complete their assignments. Absolutely. We also need to know where and how to use the Writing Center. Rebecca, very good point. That idea of introducing students to the resources and also helping them with some basic formatting, understanding how documents need to be presented in an academic environment. Brand new students also even uploading those documents, saving them, being able to use some of the functions of the Blackboard classroom is really important. see some other thoughts. And full disclosure, I used to work in the Writing Center for many years, so I am a very, very strong proponent of getting students to the Writing Center and those resources as soon as humanly possible. Simple directions and a comfort level. And I really, Doris, that's such an absolutely essential piece. I really think one of the primary things our brand new students need to understand is that they can be comfortable here, they can learn here. And that isn't automatic. That isn't something that our students, think of the student who wrote just help and 3 exclamation marks. That's not a comfortable student. That's not a student who's relaxing into the process of learning. All right, so great suggestions there. Our previous model for what we The previous model for what we did for the class onboarding was to incorporate Walden 1000, which was our onboarding course, with an academic course that had content in COM 1001. And that really, it unzippered the orientation material from the academic content, making it, they were getting their academic onboarding in one area, and they were getting their Blackboard and their orientation content in a different space. So when we redesigned this and we just kind of zippered them together, we wanted to make sure that our undergraduate students had an exciting, interesting, engaging experience. We wanted them to understand the orientation pieces about Blackboard and so on, but we also needed them to really understand the context that they would be learning as an academic experience at the same time. We wanted them to be able to practice writing. Everybody's mentioning a lot of students don't know how to format a paragraph, or they haven't been provided with a template for writing and organizing their thoughts. We wanted to help that student who's grappling with paragraph level mastery at the same time as a student who maybe is very comfortable with writing or writes extensively in their professional world. Another very important piece was the technology, helping students understand what a technology-rich learning environment feels like. We wanted a lot of media. We wanted more dynamic images and visuals. We wanted students to be able to practice some of their skills before they were assessed in those areas. And we really wanted it to be very interesting. We wanted the discussions to be very dynamic. We wanted to have choice in the types of assignments that our students could opt into. And we wanted more opportunities for our students to assess and diagnose where they were in a number of academic areas, but also in some of the soft skills, including typing skills and, the reading rate and recall, other things that we hadn't assessed in the previous course. So the new model provides a combination of an onboarding course that has the content delivered concurrently. And it started in June of 2014, and it is required of all of our new undergraduate students at Walden. And as we took the 1 credit onboarding or orientation piece and we brought it concurrently with the academic material, it is a 6 credit course to start them off. One of the things that, just looking at the slide that Tanaz put together here, you can see that there's a lot of different elements. We have 2 different vendor assessments that are embedded. Students take a math and English assessment, and they also take the Smarter Measure non-cognitive attributes that we know students do have issues associated with those skills too. And we try to make sure that the academic material was just as invigorating as some of these opportunities to look at their skills and learn more about themselves. Living and Learning in a Technological World is the course title. We have multiple perspectives. It's media rich. There's a lot of discussions about how culture and business and health and even human behavior are impacted by our use of technology. We wanted this environment to allow students to bring in some of their own multiple perspectives from their outside world. So we have opportunity for students to bring in artifacts and have visuals that they're analyzing inside of the course, and also to give them kind of marching orders past the end of our class. We have a plan for success that includes a number of factors that impact the student, not just in those first 6 weeks, but over the course of the first year that they're with us here at Walden. And to be honest, I can't see numbers on these slides anymore, so I am not sure if this is me or you.
You want to go ahead and do it?
Absolutely. So, one of the obvious things that students ran into in the old platform was that they were accessing and entering two different environments, two different classrooms. And so that alone, which doesn't maybe sound too complex, that wrinkle did account for the loss of almost 30 students per term start. They would enter one classroom, but they just wouldn't understand that both of those courses had to be completed. So by making this into a one-course offering, we really did decrease the confusion about navigating between two spaces. And then again, because the courses weren't separate, they didn't have to account for 4 separate assignments in 2 different classrooms. It was an opportunity to have everything happening in the same space. A lot of complaints about the previous onboarding model was that it really treated all the students the same, as if they hadn't had maybe online experience. The way that we've set up this course really is much more personalized. Students who are farther along in their comfort in technology are able to opt into more technologically complex assignments. Our resources are a little bit more customized. Those assessments, those diagnostic pieces help prepare students to really kind of understand that they might need a little bit more mathematical reasoning and brushing up on their math skills. We get to hear from a lot of them saying, man, I'm really glad I took that assessment. I wasn't aware of where I was with my typing speed, or I didn't really realize that my reading rate and recall wasn't what I thought it had been. So these are sort of eye-opening assessments that are paired with resources. We also have students do a lot of reflection on how their learning and their educational transformational journey fits into them as a family, a member of a family, as a part of a community. We wanted to make sure that those professional competencies that our students have obtained outside of the classroom were provided for a space to shine. So we're really looking when the students take the assessment to say, hey, where did you really shine? Were you surprised by that? Let's talk a little bit about how that professional competency might support you really well in your studies here at Walden. And we did a lot of faculty development to prepare our faculty to work in this kind of dynamic environment that's a little bit different than what they're used to as well. We were blessed to be able to pick from across all of our disciplines. So our humanities faculty includes statisticians and scientists and math faculty, as well as composition and humanities faculty, but they've all been prepared to really work directly with those brand new learners in a way that we hadn't done previously.
Laurel, I apologize for
Yes.
but I think Doris Thompson has her hand up. Would it be okay if I go ahead and...
Oh, yes, please.
Doris, I think your mic is open if you'd like to share your comments with us.
Hello, Doris. And Doris, you might have to actually click on your mic to make it green, and that's when you'll know it's live.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put her back on mute. And Doris, if it's okay, would you mind typing in the chat box, letting me know when you're ready to have your mic open again, and I'll be happy to turn it back on.
It might just be, Doris, you still have your hand up from before when we did the audience poll, and that's okay too.
That's what living and learning in a technological world is all about, these lovely little hiccups that we work through together. Should I just go on then, Tanaz?
Yeah, go ahead and do this one too.
Sure. So basically, we really strive to think about what it means to be human in a technological world, really to be a learner, to be an adult learner in a technological environment. Most specifically, we strive to help our students understand that in this online global experience, this transformational learning environment, you're really going to have an opportunity to hear from people in many different places and from many different cultures and backgrounds, and that you have a role and a responsibility inside of that bigger conversation to hear and to be heard and to exchange ideas and to allow yourself to be open to these different concepts. We really push for our students to come through this course and see themselves as a member of the Walden community, as part of an academic conversation. We want them to start thinking about their own personal plan for academic and professional success, and to see the way that Walden's resources, our faculty, our staff, and our career center, all of us work together to prepare these students not just for their learning here at Walden, but as social change agents in the world beyond that. We're trying to plant those seeds early and reinforce the idea that there's a huge network of individuals cheering these students on. Our first-term faculty maybe being the first ambassadors of this really large group of individuals who want them to do well and want them to have their needs met here at Walden. And it's just the first piece, but it's a really important piece. So, Tanaz?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm seeing in the chat box and that we're going back and forth is that we have to meet our students where they are, and that is one of the most important pieces that Rashawn brought up, but also one of the most difficult. Our students are coming from such different places. And the other thing that's coming up that Rebecca and I are discussing a little bit is trying to help students understand how to format their pages, how to use Word, and simple things just like that. I mean, how are they going to submit an assignment if they don't know how to use Word, right? So in our courses, and particularly the first term course, we start to talk about those things. This course is so much in terms of introducing ideas. But just like I said at the beginning, it's also about what it can't do. 6 weeks is not enough time to get everything across to every student because they do come from different backgrounds. So, sometimes instructors of courses immediately following the first term have to kind of create their own kind of support. And I hope that we'll present some more details in a second about the course, and that'll help you see what we do start. And then from there, maybe instructors of the next few levels of courses and the few classes following this one can kind of see where we started and go from there. But again, as much as we present a lot of these things, how much do students actually take in? It's a little bit different from student to student. So in this course, we've really given ourselves a lofty goal of an orientation and an academic class. So together, it's really about learning to just be comfortable, to get into the classroom, talk about online learning, talk about why students are with us at Walden and enrolled in the first place, why, and what is it that motivates them and keeps them going even when they can't even figure out where the first discussion forum is. So all of that is being, put into 6 weeks. We have some limitations of what the outcome will be for each student. And so anyway, they're learning about navigating, they're learning about actually doing things for the first time, and we're having them think about their writing and all these different things. And the hope is to put students on a path of success for their future classes. And this graphic is one I use with students. It doesn't matter how many resources students have, they have to actually practice using them, or it will never be enough. So we'll talk about, the Writing Center, and we'll really push the Writing Center as a source of more information and a way to keep going with what we start in the first term course. But we try to build it in a little bit as well so that it will be more meaningful. But again, 6 weeks, how much do students really become competent with using all of these, different resources? It kind of depends. So I just want to make that point. So now I want to actually tell you about the class and some of the details of it. I want to tell you a breakdown week by week. We are going to share with you, the topics, some of the themes, some of the firsts. There are a lot of firsts going on in this class. The first time that they navigate the classroom is during the first week. And then a couple examples of some of the stuff that's in the class. And if anyone's ever interested in more detail than what we go through here in this overview, please just let us know. I want to actually stop for a second and give you one more piece of information about our students. We've been collecting data, demographic data, about our undergraduates over about the last year. And what we've seen is that students, about 30-something%, come into the class and this online world with no experience, never having taken an online class before this one. The other thing is, even of those students who've taken maybe one or even two, it's really 60% of students who've only taken none, maybe one, or at most two classes. So 60% of our undergraduates are pretty new to online learning, and so navigation is really a focus in the first week. We do have a student readiness orientation that are some modules that go before this course. And students, do use that and do go to it, but there's nothing like actually getting into the classroom and trying it for real this time. And so we do have a lot of questions about that. It's the first time that they post to the class cafe, the first time they post a discussion post in the forum, the first time that they submit an assignment in the form of a Word document, and the first time we ask them to think about the writing expectations in a 1000 level starting undergraduate course, and the first time we suggest Grammarly as a resource. So all of those things are encompassed in the first week. And the way that we do all of this, the context within which we do it, is this idea of how are we going to retain our humanity in this now online learning world that they've signed up for with that one click? How is their feelings and experiences with technology going to shape how they experience this course? Someone who's really uncomfortable with technology, and believe me, there are quite a few who are not comfortable but yet have signed up for online school. How are they going to come into the classroom versus a student who really embraces technology and uses it in their own life and their work and professional career? They're going to come in at different places. And so let's talk about that in the first week. And that's really what the discussion focuses on, is how to retain humanity, how we experience technology. And one of the ways that we do this and get them thinking about their perspectives and experience with technology is through an inventory, which is basically a checklist of technology in the home. And I'll show that to you in a second. But we also have them reading some academic, a podcast called The Green Hills of Earth, some poetry, all watched over by Machines of Loving Grace, and a slideshow, tools using animals. Or tool using animals. And what that is literally a slideshow of a monkey using a stick to catch ants and things like that. The idea through all of these is, where does technology fit into our world, and where does it now fit into the world of our students who are now learning in a technological world as well. This is the Check Your Tech inventory that I talked about, and we have students look at a list of different technology and ask themselves how often they use that form or device. And one of the reasons that we do this is to actually help students who don't realize how much technology is already embedded within their life, and those ones who might be a little bit nervous because they don't have a lot of experience. Basically, this is a way of having them access that and realize, listen, hey, I use my cell phone, I use my computer, my cell phone, my stereo system. These are forms of technology. In fact, just being on the grid, electricity is also a form of technology. And so we're having students make that connection no matter where they are at with their experience of using technology, and wherever they are with their comfort level, they do use it in their life. It's part of modern life. And so we have them do this as one of the activities with which they can then comment on in their discussions and assignments. Once we kind of get them thinking about the fact that technology is something that they use on a daily basis, and we bring everybody into this idea of, how do we be human or maintain our humanity in an online world, we move then to the natural next step for adult learners, which is, okay, you're here, you're living and learning in this world. We have some strategies and ways in which we can still be human, and still interact with one another, and everybody can do it. Now we talk about, okay, what is this virtual world that you've clicked into and are now launching a whole degree program within? And within that context is a great opportunity that we completely capitalize on to talk about time management. How do you balance your work, your life, your school, everything that's on your plate with now being a student? And how do we find our own place within the virtual world? And we ask students to do that. Again, they're navigating some first. They're searching for images this week. They're looking at a library guide for the first time that is a companion to this course. The first time we ask them to post something to Doc Sharing with the image that they find. And we've got some academic content there as well. We give them some articles about how people are living their lives virtually. We, besides just the classroom, we actually talk about things like Second Life and different programs. Not only is it interesting, it's providing a model of how you can really, kind of find a life online as well. And that's really what we're asking them to do as online students. Here's an example of one of the documents we have them do, an activity we have them do with the time management. We ask them to fill out this time management tracking table. And on it, we ask them to kind of think about how much time they spend doing the different aspects within their lives. And then from there, where does school fit in? Where can they find or make time to fit school? And when we talk about all these things we're trying to accomplish in the first term course, I think back to the question I asked you, which was, what was your first 6 weeks of college like? Well, their first 6 weeks for our non-traditional adult students is really trying to figure out, how do I do this? How do I go to school on top of working full time or having a family or both? How do I, balance it all? And they literally struggle with this. Many students can't quite figure it out. And so at the same time that we're trying to introduce Grammarly and how to submit assignments and how to use Word and templates, they're also just literally thinking about and reflecting upon, how is this going to work in their lives? And of course, time management is a really good way to start that conversation, and to give them some tips and strategies of how they will do that. Week 3, we go a little bit deeper now. We've got them thinking about how they can find their place in the virtual world, because humans live and learn in a technological world, and we've talked about it, reflected about it, and we use those to now talk a little bit about perspectives. And the perspectives is not just about other students, but their own knowledge of self. Laurel mentioned that our students come in with such different readiness levels. Well, one of the most important things we do in week 3 is say to students, it's time to start thinking about where you are in terms of your skills, and it's time to get real. It's time to really think about what you need to do to be successful on your academic journey now. And what is your learning style? And what does that mean when you're studying in your classes? And what personal attributes do you have that are going to either help you in your journey or maybe even get in the way? For example, persistence is discussed in this week. Do they persist when something is difficult? What is their usual response when they get into an assignment and they have no clue what to do? Which often happens in this class too. What do they do? Do they reach out for help? Are they willing to do that? Do they know how to make use of their resources? And if not, how can we develop those skills so that they can be successful as college students? And so there's a lot of reflection built into this week, not just about understanding the experience from, within the classrooms from other students, but within themselves as well. And so to do that, we use Smarter Measure. And I'll show you a little bit more about Smarter Measure in a second. But we also just kind of have this whole theme of self-assessment throughout week 3, 4, and 5. And they assess various aspects of their skills and their readiness for college level learning. This is also an important time where we introduce their first journal. Journals are set up as blog entries. You might use that in your course. They've seen it before here in the first term course. But the reason we introduce journals is that it's as we're reflecting, we like to give students a space where they can just safely say, hey, I feel really good about this, or wow, I'm really overwhelmed and worried about what I just clicked into and what I've just committed to doing. And we can kind of reinforce them there and work with them to bring them where they need to be. It's the first time they have an official paper where they had to actually write something that was more than just a paragraph or two. Although we really get into writing in week 4, which Laura will tell you about when we're done with week 3. But there really is their first longer paper. And so this is also a time where we see a little bit of growing pains with students and their writing. And again, we reinforce all the resources available to them there and give a lot of suggestions. We have an assignment example that I'm going to show you, which is helping students to figure out their preferred methods of learning. And so, for example, we have them look at 2 versions of the Ain't I a Woman speech given by Sojourner Truth in 1851. So we've got the written version of it that we refer students to when they read the speech. And then we have an interpretation by Cicely Tyson that was given to Congress a few years ago. And we have them watch her interpretation in video form. And so then we ask students to compare that experience between the 2 formats and to make some conclusions about what it might mean for how they like to learn. And then from there, not only what they like, but how they deal with when they're given material that isn't in that preferred form. A lot of students will say they prefer the video because of the visuals. It helps them understand the tone and maybe the intention a little bit better. But a lot of students do actually like the written version. So what happens when you're given just one and not the other? And what are some strategies there that you can use as a learner? I mentioned that we have Smarter Measure, which is a vendor. I think Laura said this as well earlier on. We have them take these self-assessments where we ask them questions to assess their learning style, their technology competence, individual attributes, some of their life factors, their reading rate, their typing skills, and all kinds of things. In week 3, we focus on their learning styles and their attributes. And here are some examples of questions that you can see on the screen. You're a good listener. Is that very much like you or nothing like you at all? You're energized by physical activity. You hum or sing out loud. And so students answer a collection of these questions. And at the end of it, each week, they're given a report. And the report tells them what their primary learning style is based on their responses. And it actually provides some resources to explore their learning style more and how they might use certain strategies for learning given their preferred learning style. So the implications for their learning, more resources. And just, again, it's about self-awareness. If we're meeting students where they are, we have to help them understand where they are. And this is part of that. And Laurel's going to tell you about week 4 and 5.
So, one of the things that students really quickly kind of unpack from the first 4 weeks is that, they're trying to make me see that learning in a technological world is still a very human activity. It's even if all I've had is a traditional brick and mortar background, there are so many touchstones experiences that are really, similar. And so we have them reading Walden, we have them reading Thoreau, and we want to start talking about what does it mean to really be absent from technology, or how could we really uncouple our lives from technology? Is it even possible? Our students are taking a self-assessment on math this week, but they're also doing the rough draft of their paper. And one of the things that Tanaz and I have worked really closely with faculty, all this novelty presents a lot of opportunity for students to get uncomfortable again. Each new or first thing that happens is a chance for students to say, hey, wait a second. So you'll see that a lot of times we'll juxtapose a novel type of opportunity for students to have an assessment with an opportunity to reflect on it. We also try to make sure that there's a nice blend of more topical and current issues. Tanaz mentioned Second Life, but we also have our students thinking about Lady Gaga and Beyonce, how IT and women's issues intersect, and also looking at how the broader implications of technology, including Arab Spring, and how communication via Twitter really helped people organize and stay in tracking with each other who are all trying to protest events. And so there's in one level we're talking about, is it possible to not be part of the technological world? Can we really opt out? But at the same time, what are the positive, beneficial, transformational opportunities for us globally for opting in and using technology in a really positive way to create positive social change? In all of this, we're really also trying to bring our students to understand some of the real foundational concepts that they're going to need to be an academic writer in school. We want them to start thinking about their audience and the purpose and tone of their work. The instructions that we provide them for writing in their journal are very different than the rubric and the instructions for an application. So we want them to start using evidence from their readings, revising, considering the drafting process. We talk about and encourage them to use Grammarly. We have really pushed our students to make sure that they proofread, but that they use some of the tools the Writing Center has around proofreading. And talking about in your writing, you want to make a claim and you want to use evidence, and you want to make sure that you're looking for academic resources. Some of the preliminary information literacy skills are being introduced in this course as well. And I think, in week 5 is where you see a really dynamic shift. Some of our students who come in with an associate's degree, they're maybe working from an RN to a BSN, or students who are in law enforcement and they have a 2-year degree already, they're police officers. We want them to be able to do something that might be kind of a tier up from our brand new students who might be coming in, with a GED, or maybe didn't have a lot of academic experience, or haven't worked in a profession, maybe have been a stay-at-home parent. They still have loads of wonderful competencies to apply, but maybe they're not quite ready to put that into a professional profile. But in week 5, we are helping our students put their best virtual foot forward and talking about creating an online presence. And we worked closely with Walden's Career Center, and they have a tool called Optimal Resume, and they also have a Walden LinkedIn group. And so we have students who are maybe higher or more advanced in their professional lives and at a point in their careers where they want to have an online presence. Their option in week 5 is to create a profile in LinkedIn, to update the resume and kind of enter into that, broader public profile. But the option here on week 5 is that if a student isn't quite to that point, we've created with our media department some mocked up LinkedIn profiles where students have maybe made a few errors in judgment and there's some typographical issues, and we allow students to critique and apply the rubric to a profile that's already been created if that's not where they are at this point and they don't really want to maybe take that next step. And again, this is all in the context of an academic conversation about how to find mentors and what happens with your Facebook profile and how it can actually even maybe sabotage a job search. We really want our students to think about themselves as being human in a technological world, both academically, professionally, and personally.
There we go. So the final week is kind of bringing it all together, and we've been heading towards having students think about their place in the virtual world, and now we actually have them think about how they will establish that place and how they do it at Walden and their place as a student of Walden. I have one instructor who often says, "Welcome to the Walden family." What does that mean for them? And what are the advantages, the disadvantages of this whole online experience? Let's talk about it openly. Let's reflect about it, and let's come up with a personal success plan that you can use to do well during your educational journey with us. And of course, we like to introduce social change in this last week. Make sure that they get the importance of that. It's been mentioned earlier, but it's we show them some inspirational videos with the Scholars of Change and things like that. And of course, the final draft of their week 4 paper is really the focus of the week. We talk about Word, we talk about comments, tracking changes, things like that, and we help students see writing as a process. So we tell students that every person who's walked across a stage to earn their degree has started where they are today with that first class, and that their journey is going to be their own journey, because they all start at different places. And even though we often think of success as a straight line from start to finish, truthfully, there's often a lot of little curves and different paths along the way to get there. But they get there. And we see that at graduation with students walking across the stage who all began with the first class. We also found, though, that the teachers along the way really made a big impact. And so when we designed the course, we knew that we had to not just design a great course that introduced a lot of things and went through a lot of resources, but that also involved faculty who were special and able to be ready for the first term course. Should I keep going, Laurel? Or you want to take this?
No, I was just, Tanaz really has been so instrumental in this slide. I kind of looked at it, I was like, it can't possibly be mine, but it is. So just briefly about the hiring process, we were able to target our recruitment across our disciplines, and we had a lot of interest in it. We had our faculty take the class before they taught the class, which was really a wonderful experience. Our faculty completed the assignments, and we were able to have exemplars when the course started. As the time closer to the course launch began in June, we opened our doors. Tanaz and I both taught with the teachers who were going to be teaching the curriculum, able to access our classrooms, come in, look and see what we were doing, borrow announcements, borrow handouts, borrow classroom tours, whatever they felt would be beneficial to their students. Tanaz has been ongoing in her team building and really recognizing high performers and allowing the exemplars of classroom performance come from the faculty themselves. We really have a very warm, high-touch environment, sending out a welcome email as soon as a class goes live, posting welcoming media elements, and just making sure there's very quick turnaround. Students feel heard, they feel seen, they feel noticed, observed, and responded to. It's an essential piece, but one that can be very time-consuming and requires a lot of diligence on the side of Tanaz as the coordinator. We wanted to quickly touch on the fact that we've had some really good news initially about the course, and granted the curriculum's so different from before, you're kind of comparing apples to oranges, but the students who took Humanities 1001 are more likely to retain through census. They've been more likely to go on and pass that first term course, meaning we've upped the pass rate in the course. They're more likely to take a second class from us here at Walden, and they're actually even more likely to pass that second class. So when we talk about periscoping out past the point where that class ends, we really mean that we hope to give them tools that they could use beyond the scope of the course, and we're kind of seeing that a little bit in that uptick in their ability to pass that next course. Attrition's down, grades are up. Student and faculty, I really had some positive responses to how this onboarding is really enhancing their feelings of comfort with starting their coursework with us. And some of the data at the bottom of it are AAP loss, where the students who are not able to persist or who are really struggling in those early first 14 days of class. That first, in summer when we launched, it was the lowest in the history of our college. And so to see those numbers drop, the day one to census loss and other indicators, that's how the energy and the enthusiasm and the warmth and the joy that these classrooms are really the earmark of these classrooms. It lives out in some kind of nice hard data as well, I'd have to say. So Naz, did you have anything else you wanted to say about that as well?
Oh no, sorry. So the equation of success that I talk about, and I come from the math area. I started as a math core faculty member for CUGS. It's really about the curricular improvements that we focused on, but we've also got motivated students and active, engaged faculty. And all of this, as Laura went over the data, shows you that we really are getting greater success for our new students, which is really exciting. But what are some of the takeaways, some of the things that we found throughout this, and as we continue this first term experience of looking at it and what we can do to help students? First term courses that are just orientation for our population just are not as successful. Combining academics with orientation is a good thing. And, so even in courses right after this one, maybe not the first term course, but maybe the second or third or even fourth that they take after this could include some orientation aspects as well. We know that students need practice. They can't accomplish everything in this first 6 weeks. And so courses after this should scaffold those skills that we started and let students have a safe space in which to continue practicing. Students like choice. They love talking and learning about themselves. They like the opportunity for reflection. That's actually something that a lot of students really enjoy thinking about throughout this course as they're practicing all their firsts. They also like to plan. They want to think about their goals and how they're going to achieve it. They want to see that finish line. And of course, focusing on faculty is important for a successful first term course, or really any course. Faculty is a huge component, and we find that more and more based on student feedback. And I put in the chat box that we recorded something about focus on faculty as a webinar yesterday. Laurel and I presented. So if you're interested in that, there is another webinar that will be archived that you can access. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for us, just as I tell other students, we're just an email or phone call away. Eugene McKee is one of my lead faculty, and I left his name there if you wanted to connect with him. He'd be happy to tell you more about the course as well. And I thought I would just leave you with some of what students are telling us about this first term course. And I want to just thank everybody for taking the time to join us. I think Deepa might have some closing thoughts for us or requests for us. But again, thank you so much for attending.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And just a reminder, I'm going to end the meeting so that you can go ahead and complete the survey at the end. Laurel and Tanaz, thank you for sharing this wonderful information, and I hope all of you have a wonderful evening. Have a good night, everybody.